Hi guys, John Lee here. I'm starting a new series called the Cancer Donations Team. This is going to take place over the next 4 weeks. It's to raise awareness for a charity event that I'm participating in during mid-August. The way this is working is in return for donations, to offer as an incentive and a token of my appreciation. I'm going to analyse games suggested by players. So here's a note I've written to Isaac Levi. I've written, "Hi again, Isaac. I'll be releasing a new series named Cancer Donations Tins. Will be to encourage fundraising for lymphoma in Australia." So lymphoma is a cancer of the lymph nodes. The concept is simple. For every $20 donation, I will analyse a game of the donator's choice on my channel, no questions asked. Could be one of your own games, or could be a game you've observed. The strength of the players is irrelevant. As you've already donated $20, I would like to offer you the first opportunity to suggest a game to go through. Hope this is something you'd like to do and look forward to hearing from you. So he's responded. He said, "What a great idea. Love it. I do have a game in mind. It's a game against Master Tan. So I'll go through that in a minute. So before I get to that though, I'm going to show you how you can get to the donation side and talk a little bit about what that is. So if you go to my channel, you'll be able to find the link at the bottom of this video, but just going to give you an example using one of the videos where I posted the link already. At the bottom, just click the link and that will go to everydayhero.com. Okay, you should come to this page. So importantly here, don't go to the channel support link. So there is another one I have here. Do not click this one because that just goes to the channel. I'd like the donations to go to this particular page, which will go to the charity. So here you can already see supporters that have donated. We've got Rogers, who's been very generous. He's put in $100 of his own money. He did that within the first day of this news going out on the channel. So he'll be entitled to 5 games to suggest. Isaac, who I'm about to analyse a game from. There's Bruce, Suwanet, Master Tan, Mustard Boy. So really appreciate all the support so far. There's no donation too large or too small, but for those that are $20 or greater, I will be doing this analysis piece. So for Bruce, Bruce, if you're out there, I know there's been a comment on one of my channels. You were wanting me to analyse one of those games, so that's what I'll be doing for you. So yeah, let's get into Isaac Levi's game. Okay, so this was a game he played against Master Tan. He did win the game. I will say it's one of maybe 10 games he's played against Master Tan, and this may be the only game that he won. He was white and Master Tan was black. So let's go through it. So e4, knight c6, knight f3, knight f6. So yeah, Master Tan does like to start with knight c6 sometimes. I think that's quite versatile. It allows many different openings to emerge because black hasn't committed either of the central pawns just yet. And it is fine bringing the knights out early. So it's a little bit different to chess where white might push up some pawns quite quickly. But it's fine in Crazy House because what that can do is sometimes overextend the white pieces, and there's actually weaknesses that appear at the back, which maybe black can exploit. So yeah, that's a key difference out of the first couple of moves. Knight c3, e5, and so Master Tan has chosen to go for a fairly standard e4, e5 setup. There's been a lot of the bishop c4 and bishop e7. Now yeah, the bishop can come to e7 or c5. Either is fine. c5 is just being acted on f2. e7 is being a defensive, preparing for bishop g5 coming in later. Both are playable. Isaac's chosen to do an early bishop takes f7 sap, which is okay. Now in chess it would not be okay, but because we can put pieces on the board, this is often followed with pawn at d5. So the idea being it will knock the knight away, and then this pawn will be available. So yeah, there's different ways the game can proceed from here. Black, I've seen play knight d4, check, which I think is fine for white. I mean, this knight's now trapped, and there's already 2 pawns, so if black tries to get the knight back, you know, it's easy development for white. There's a nice pawn centre there. I prefer to play white in this situation. If knight b8, sure, black's got a piece with 2 pawns, but then black's quite passive. So I think white does have compensation here. Nice centre, you know, weaker king. So there's some more. I mean, in this game, there's some value in king safety, and so it's not as straightforward as chess, where the material balance really is more concrete. I think. Okay, but often black will opt to give up this knight to try to get the king safe, or hold on to the e5 pawn in other ways. So Master Tan played rook f8, which is quite a common idea. And the idea is to allow white to catch the knight, but then castle artificially. And already here it looks like, well, is black just going to be a pawn down? But what it means is this rook file opens up. If white spends too many moves capturing pawns, it can actually backfire, and there's plenty of activity for black. So an example of this could be taken here. There's activity on e4. Pawn at f7 might be something to look at. Sometimes bishop at h5 is useful. But yeah, it's a game from here. I mean, the e4 pawn is now potentially hanging. Black's much closer to finishing development. So black's fine. I mean, this pawn is not really much because it's quite dynamic. So I should have actually read some comments that Isaac wanted to put out there. So he's trying to take the opponent out of book with bishop takes f7 and create complications. I'd say that bishop takes f7 would definitely be part of Master Tan's book. We have a lot of options to play against there, but it does make some complications. So I'll go back to the game. Okay, so king g8 was played. Knight takes e5, and d takes c6. So white is a pawn up. But black is getting development. This bishop has a good line. The black king's artificially castled. Bishop at d4 or pawn at d4 could be an option to hit the e4 square. So black's pieces are coordinated just fine. And white also has a playable game from here too. So Isaac's chosen to play d3. Now, that's fine. d3 is a move. d4 is also a move. Sometimes there's a pin that'll take place you can defend against. Even sometimes against pawn at d4, it's not too bad to even give that piece back for a solid centre. They're all quite playable. So play might continue knight h4, g1. And at the right time, white can choose to play either pawn at h6 or pawn at f7. Just take time to make that attack happen without allowing black to build too much counterplay. d3 is also fine because it supports the e4 pawn. So if this knight is hit by the bishop or pawn, it's still defended. So Master continued with bishop at d4. So that's hitting f2, hitting e5, and here, yeah, here it's a game from here really. I mean, there's options. There's knight f3. You might try something like pawn f7. But yeah, I think there's potentially some value in holding on to material. I'm not too concerned about this just yet. Yeah, there's some tricks to be careful of. Pawn or two. If the rook takes, you don't want to recapture with the pawn because of knight e3. So you'd have to recapture with the queen. So it can get quite sharp, and white will need to hold the position. But if white can hold it, then black won't break through. But what happened in the game was actually pawn at f7, the more aggressive option. And here black has two choices, so king h8 or rook takes f7. Either of which could be fine. So Isaac asked a question here, is rook takes f7 force. King h8 looks risky, but I don't see anything concrete. With the king h8, knight at g6, h takes g6, knight takes g6. Yeah, I don't see anything concrete either. So black does need to be a little bit careful, but it can continue this way. Check, queen takes. If this knight wasn't here, it would be over for black because it defends this h5 square. That's really important. Queen h5 is a move which would happen if the knight was not there, and then you have pawn at g6. And again, if the knight was not there, you have rook at h7 mate. So, yeah, with the knight being there though, I think white does look a little overextended here. That pawn's going to fall. Yeah, maybe you could try something like pawn at g5, but then black can even play something like knight g4 to keep the queen out from h5. And then if white starts losing the pawn here and everything else, but you can already see there's pressure building here. I'm preferring black, I think. Maybe rook at h4 is something keeping things alive. Take that. But okay, there's other options. Black can also take here. And you know, white's not checkmating black anytime soon. And I think at the end of this, black's going to have some options on where to put these pawns and knights. So my assessment of this is I'd actually probably prefer black here. So king h8 is fine. It may even be the better move here because it really does force. White to do something. I mean, if now white backs off, then black can just pick up a pawn for free. So it makes pawn at f7 look silly. So yeah, my preference is probably more to back the knight off in this opening. Anyway, Master Tan decided he would capture, which is also okay. Now, you might think, oh, knight at g5, and, he's black in trouble, but white doesn't have the material to really make too many problems on the king side. Yeah, there's a rook h8 check, which wins the queen. But black actually has a whole heap of material in return for that. And this queen can't really be used to win any material. e8's covered, the light squares are covered, the check from here, the knight at e6 covers the bishop. So what I foresee happening is black will consolidate, moves like pawn at f7, knight h4, and these minor pieces will actually progress on white's position because white won't be able to penetrate. So yeah, some players think knight at g5 would check on the king. Some new players that are going to think it's game over, but it's not. I mean, white needs to have enough support backing that up. So Isaac in fact castled here, possibly because he thought knight at g5 wasn't much. And Master Tan just did some prophylaxis. He just that term meaning, you prepare against a threat or go for an attack before it actually happens. So he's just not allowing knight at g5 to happen. So if black wants to open up the position, he'll want to get his king safe first before doing that. So knight at f5. Now I found it interesting here that Isaac commented king g8 is a bad move. I put a question mark on it. Maybe at g6 to prevent knight at f5. I think king g8 is okay because knight at f5 is not something to be too concerned about. It's a move, and bishop takes f5 is fine. It's holding the position together, so it's not bad to keep that there. I think instead of pawn at g6, pawn at g6 does stop knight at f5, but it's not really getting the king back to safety for the longer term. And black also doesn't have a pawn in hand to use for future. So I think Master Tan is just being a bit resourceful here and getting the king back. And even here, the knight can take some pieces, but it's not immediately threatening. I think knight takes d4 though does help white to unravel because after queen takes, the bishop can develop, and white will have a bishop in hand and do some things, some safety with the bishop covering f2. It's minor progression. knight g7 is there, but not as concerned about that. I still think after knight g7, king g7, pawn h6, white still doesn't have enough to really say that the rook is threatening. So Master Tan did decide to take it though, and what that does reveal is a little bit of light square weakness. So my immediate thought is pawn at f7, which is played. So black's got plenty of coverage on the dark squares, and when you're defending, you want to have a balance of defense on your light and your dark squares so that there's no penetration points for your opponent. So yeah, I would not be concerned about something like bishop at e6. We can just take that and then think about how we undermine this pawn, because pawn at f7 isn't going anywhere. Rook at e8 or rook at g8 are both covered by the knight, so that doesn't amount to too much. We're going to take with the queen because of knight at f7, so take with the king, and then white's just basically losing a whole lot of material and not getting an attack, so that would fall. Then black would have his day after making his king safe and choosing not to attack. So Isaac played bishop at h6 in fact here, and I'll just pause a moment here to evaluate what's going on in this position. In fact, if you count the material, there's 8 pawns aside. Black's got a knight in return for a rook. In Crazy House, the rook is not worth more than the knight. Not at least in the middle game. It's definitely worth more if you've got a mate to place with a rook. But in this case, it's actually a really balanced position here. I couldn't tell you who I'd prefer to take. I could play it with either white or black. Black has just some options to come in on that might look a bit more natural, but this is really just a game here. So I want to comment here that I think this position is absolutely balanced. It's great. It's unknown to both players, and from here both players just need to play. It's just a completely balanced position. Now Isaac goes for an aggressive move, bishop at h6, which it's not entirely bad because he's got a rook in hand. He's trying to get in on g7, but I do think this is maybe starting to give away too much material. He's taken, and then Master Tan's played pawn g7. So when you commit to this bishop sack on h6, I mean, it seems a bit silly now to back off, which you can do, but you're basically just giving away a bishop for a pawn, right? When you're trying to attack. So when white goes bishop h6, he's nearly committing to bishop takes g7. And so white's now given up 2 pieces for 2 pawns. And there's still some dark squares to hit, but black's already pretty well set up to deal with the black squares. So I feel like, black could give a piece back. I think black could actually be standing a little bit better here, just because black will have a residual advantage on material later on, and a defense does look likely. If you're asking the question what to play instead of bishop at h6, that's probably not an easy answer. So where my mind is thinking here as well, I can't really attack the opponent. I'm not too keen on putting the bishop here. It just, it's just blocked there anyway, and then you've got a bishop that's doing nothing. So honestly, I'm feeling like attack isn't really on the cards. So I've got to do something material-wise, or something that prevents the opponent from progressing. So natural move for black would be something like knight at h4, because that's hitting this pawn, it's hitting here. So yeah, I mean, I'm even considering a move like bishop at h3 here, which looks really passive, but it just secures these squares, and it's nice because this bishop covers out to here, so this bishop can't be hit easily. Pawn at g4 is not an option because it's defended. And look, I'll be honest, it's not really that aggressive. It might help support e6 later, but here I think white actually has to prepare some defense in advance of black making some moves. So now if black plays knight at h4, you can meet it with bishop g5, and then black can't really gain momentum too quickly. So it's a funny situation where you're actually quite balanced, but my recommendation here is actually to play something. So when you're in doubt, what should drive you in a middle game is what can I do to work on my opponent's king? If I can't do that, what can I do to work on my own king? Um, Otherwise, what can I do to try to win some material or improve the pieces that are already on the board? And here, I would think, even faced with this position, you would get a lot of different answers from strong players on how to proceed here. It's actually a little bit ambiguous, but that's my somewhat passive recommendation. And even here, so how should black proceed? Maybe even something like a knight at e5, just an important g4. Might respond with something like this. Yeah, and then you're really playing a material game. So yeah, that's just a whole other game. We're going to go back to the way this is played, but I feel that this is probably a little bit better for black already, objectively. So pawn at g5, hitting the knight. Pawn at h6 is also an opportunity. Master 10 has decided to preserve it. There's a number of ways black could play. Black could even just maybe back off the king into the corner if this gets taken. There's plenty of defense on g7. If there's any threats coming in that can be defended, g8, f7, they're going to be covered. And then, the way it would go is black wants to put a pawn here, consolidate the king side, and then start his own attacking move with knight at h4. But Nasatan has chosen to defend, which is also fine. The knight gives plenty of coverage, and then he's basically asking white to give him 2 pawns for the piece, not 1. So check and king g8. Both are fine. So black's still got plenty of coverage. And now black's threatening to take this pawn as well. So already I feel that's why my black's better from this position. Knight e4, and bishop takes g5. So it's really getting quite decisive now. Black's just chewing up all the material. And I'll be honest, I'm surprised Master Tan lost the position from here. Because he actually did lose this game. So we'll see how easily events can turn if you're not careful in this game. So Isaac plays a good move, queen g4, getting the queen active, hitting g5. It can potentially get hit with knight at e5 or something at knight f6, but he's got this piece to capture. So here I think black should just really defend g7, maybe it's something like bishop at e7. Because even after these sorts of captures, white doesn't have a way in. It's all really solid. He can keep hitting, but eventually black's going to have the opportunity to counter strike by hitting the queen and generating an attack. So it's looking very favourable to black here. So I think just staying on the defence is probably right. At the right moment, you hit the queen. And Master Tan played knight at e5, which actually gives up the bishop. So white gets that with check and gets free capture. And then suddenly, white has something to play for. So I have a feeling that Master Tan played knight e5 thinking that the pressure on f3 would amount to something. Either he's missed the fact that queen takes g5 is check and he thought he had knight at f3, or he missed the fact that the knight's defending f3 and h3 and thought he had some kind of knight h3 mating continuation. But yeah, knight at e5 is not the best move here just because it gives white a piece. And now white actually has something to play for. And now from here, I think black does need to address the king side. I mean, something like bishop at f6 seems required just to keep g7 on the rabs. I still think black's okay, but white now does have something to play for. So white can ways to progress here. I was thinking something like rook at g3, but knight at e2 looks fairly convincing. You can't play a sack like knight f7 because knight at h3 will end up mating you. Just how that finishes in mate. You run the king back, queen at g2 mate. If you run it up, queen at f3 just seals the king off from running anywhere. So yeah, so rook at g3, knight at e2, king across. And black can potentially pick this off. Doesn't even need to. We might even have mate. Let's have a look at h2. Maybe, yeah, I think it's just enough. That's all forced mate. Can't play king g1 against rook h2 because of queen at h1. So you probably white has to take this way. And then I think black's fine just taking the knight. So there's no queen at g7 mate because the knight's covering. The bishop's covering, knight at f6 or knight at e7 as particular the penetration points. And if white tries to attack like this, then there's a mate because black's acquired a knight. It's another mate on f2. So yeah, still, not easy for white if black plays bishop at f6. But black didn't play bishop at f6. Black played pawn at f3, just going for the attack. So that threatens knight at e2, and the king moves there as a capture. And I think Master has just missed a key tactic, which Isaac did fine. So he's written, could black have held this position with defense instead of pawn at f3? He actually did note bishop at f6. Let's have a look at the lines he suggested. Sorry, I didn't notice that before. Or maybe these are lines I've suggested, in fact. So, rook at h8. This is a key move. So, it's a winning move from Isaac here. Not obvious, but the key is that rook at h8 forces the king to leave the f8 square unguarded. And then the queen can then come into there. So the way the game continued was king takes h8, bishop at f6. If knight takes, then queen at g7 mate. So he's blocked on g7, and then queen at f8. But this is a common motive where queen places a check, but actually starts defending other squares. So you kind of gain a tempo on attacking. It's a very common mating idea. And now white has too much on g7. So it's not just the fact that you gain an attacking piece here, but the queen also pins whatever defensive piece you're trying to get to defend there. So it nearly gets two attackers on g7. So it was quite a nice little finish at the end. I will say that bishop at f6 is just another move. I mean, you could play queen at f8 directly as well and get the same outcome. It's just looking a little more elegant perhaps. But okay, after rook at h8, it's a done deal. So look, black should have played bishop at f6. All right, but yeah, that concludes the end of that game. So this will be the first session of Cancer Donations, Tim. The next one I need to do is for Bruce. Bruce had actually requested more than once for one of my games against Chicken Crossroad to be analysed. So I'll look at that. So again, look, if you want to donate to the channel, please direct your donations to this website, Everyday Hero. I'll put the link at the bottom of the video, and yeah, if you put $20 in, you're entitled to get a game of analysis, any game you choose. So I'm going to close this video there. Please support this. It is a worthy cause, and yeah, you'll see more of these in the next 4 weeks. Take care.